Greetings, my name is Boone and welcome to the Immuno Labs podcast. We have another episode today where we're focusing on inflammation. This is something that people hear a lot about, but don't really know how it relates to them. So we're going to be talking about how inflammation is silently aging you and how to stop it. Please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the like on the video, and if you have any questions throughout the video, just put it into the comments. We'll do our best to respond back to you. And then of course, send this out to a friend, let people know that this content's out there. It may be able to help them a lot. So with inflammation, what is it, right? So first, when you think of inflammation, often it's seen as this like crazy thing that maybe only happens to certain people. But the reality is, inflammation is really like kind of the alarm system of your body to kind of say, hey, like there's an issue going on. Let's bring people together to help fix this issue. So the best way to think about it is if you've ever cut yourself or done any kind of an injury, like let's say a cut or you banged into something, right? Like you get a bruise. So what happens, right? When you first, cut yourself, ouch, it hurts, right? You bleed, and then also you'll notice as it's healing, there'll be like some redness around there, right? It starts to get inflamed. If you put your lips to it, you'll probably also feel that's hot, right? Same thing if you bang your elbow or bang a part of your body into something, you get a bruise. The first thing you'll notice gets kind of hot, usually kind of red, irritated. Also the same thing like bug bites, you get inflamed or you have this like inflammatory response to it. So that's in general what inflammation is. But inflammation isn't only caused from doing something that's 100% detrimental to you, right? So there are different types of inflammation, and that's what I want to get into today, because some inflammation is actually good for you, right? Some inflammation is a result of something bad, right? So if you smash into something, of course that's good in the sense of your body's now healing, but you kind of did something that was detrimental to your body. So when I start talking about the good inflammation, you'll understand there's a bit of a difference there. So when it comes to inflammation, the thing that we really want to stay away from is chronic inflammation, especially when it comes to the bad inflammation. So that's where your immune system, stays switched on unnecessarily. It creates this constant background stress on your cells and tissues. And this is then what starts to gradually, age you. It starts to gradually damage your healthy cells, DNA, blood vessels, and organs. So how can chronic inflammation accelerate aging? Well, it speeds up oxidative stress, and now we have more free radical damage. It breaks down collagen and elastin, which creates wrinkles, joint pain, loss of skin elasticity, and also impairs your mitochondria. Remember, your mitochondria, those are your power cells of your body, right? And as it impairs them, you now have lower energy, fatigue, slower recovery. It can alter your hormone balance, which leads to weight gain, poor sleep, mood changes. So there's a lot of things that this chronic inflammation can cause, especially when it's inflammation in a bad way. So you may not feel it directly, but chronic low-grade inflammation is quietly aging you from the inside out. So what are these two different types of inflammation? More importantly, because I feel like this is the one that most people don't understand, is what is good inflammation? So good inflammation is that, short-term, purposeful, healing response, right? So an example of this that would be in a good way would be exercise, right? You go to the gym, you break down, some of your muscles and tissues, and then you have these micro tears that are getting repaired, which leads into stronger muscles, right? So that is inflammation, but it's good because by doing that, you're getting stronger, you're having more muscle mass. That can lead to a whole myriad of things that can help you not only in longevity, but just in feeling better as you go about your day. The next one we have is sauna and heat. So that is inflammatory, right? Your body's sweating. If you've ever been in a sauna for a long time, you mentally understand it's taxing. So it's not like you're sitting there relaxing, having a great time. It's tough, right? It's difficult. That is a hormetic stress, and that builds resilience, right? So that can also be a good form of inflammation. The other one that's quite popular is cold exposure. This creates an immune system stimulation. So even though we have these three forms of inflammation, right? So exercise, sauna, heat, and cold exposure, just because it's in the category of inflammation doesn't definitively mean that this is bad for you, right? It can lead to good things. So exercise, stronger muscles. Heat leads to better hormetic stress, and it builds up your resilience. Cold exposure, immune system stimulation. So these things can help. So the acute inflammation of those areas can lead to recovery and growth. But bad inflammation, this is what you want to stay away from. So this can be, like I mentioned before, you get a cut, everything heals, that can be fine. But if you get an infection, right, whether it's viral or bacterial, these infections, that's not good in inflammation at all. So how can you avoid those things? I mean, the most basic one is proper hygiene, right? Dietary triggers, such as processed foods, sugars, seed oils, these can all start causing inflammation. Also, inflammatory foods. If you're eating a food that your body is having an immune response to and is fighting against, well, now you have something that not only is causing this chronic inflammation, but you're unknowingly doing it, right? You're eating this inflammatory food. So find out what those foods are for you and remove them from your diet. Then you also have mental and emotional stress, right? So stress at work, poor sleep, all of these things can create some cortisol dysregulation, and that now continues this chronic inflammation. Then we have environmental toxins, right? Pollution, smoking, alcohol, chemicals, chemicals such as, cleaning products, things that you use for detergents, even washing your dishes, all of these things just start stacking up. So you don't have to necessarily be perfect, but just start going through this stack of, are you getting, these chronic viral or bacterial infections? Do you have the dietary triggers? Do you have the mental and emotional stress triggers? And do you have the environmental toxins? And that's where you want to start going through and just checking off what can I improve in this list, right? So I can remove that inflammation out of my daily routine, my daily habits, my weekly exposure, so I can start reducing that overall inflammation, and then find ways you can add in some of the good inflammation like exercise, heat exposure, and cold exposure. So, how can you start detecting this hidden inflammation? So some of the signs will be quite obvious, right? Like the swelling, the pain, heat when you've injured an area. Some of the signs are more subtle, right? So those will be things like fatigue, digestive issues, headaches, brain fog, skin flare-ups. There'll be ways that your body is talking to you saying, hey, you've got something going on. You got to make some improvements in this area. Also, lab testing can help you with this. You can look at your C-reactive protein. Specifically, it's called HSCRP, which is high sensitivity C-reactive protein. And that will give you an idea of where your kind of stress levels are at. You can look at your homocysteine levels, your blood sugar and insulin. And then also, most people don't think about this, but as I mentioned before, that hidden inflammation in your diet, that's where you can get an IgG and an IgE food allergy and inflammatory food test, which is something we offer here at Immuno Labs through our blood print test and our IgE panels to help you understand what some of those other toxins are that you may not really be thinking about as something that's inflammatory. I just helped someone earlier today, getting their finger prick and collecting their specimens so they could get tested, and they're wondering, oh man, like, am I going to have an issue with eggs? Well, if you look at most health books, they're going to say that chicken eggs are really good for you. It's like thought of as like kind of a complete food. It's a great protein. It's easily accessible, super easy to cook. But for so many people, it's an inflammatory food. So for the individual that we helped earlier today, we're going to find out next week or maybe in a couple days, what is going on with them? Is this their inflammatory item? So it's hard to just guess and know. Like you'll probably see content out there that's like, oh, these are the most inflammatory foods, don't eat them. It just really depends. And of course there are some general foods that we see coming up for a lot of people, but truthfully, you need to know what it is for your body, right? I'm sure everyone has heard of someone that has an immediate allergy to something and someone in their family does not have that immediate allergy. So the best way to know is to get yourself tested, because just like the immediate allergies, the food sensitivities are going to be personalized to you. The daily habits that can help you in lowering inflammation, just as I was talking about food, nutrition, that's a huge one. So remove your inflammatory foods, remove those processed sugars, seed oils, allergens, and then add in some anti-inflammatory foods, right? So it's one thing to kind of, get the, stop the problem, but then we also want to start, healing the issue, right? So it's kind of like, I always link it back to like if you were to have a cut, right? If you have a basic cut, if you get a cut and you just stop things from attacking you, great. If you get a basic cut, put on some healing ointment and bandage it appropriately, it's going to heal so much faster and you're going to have less of an issue with it, right? So that's what you want to think about with this. So with your nutrition, take out the inflammatory foods, add in the anti-inflammatory foods, such as omega-3s, turmeric, leafy greens, berries. All those can help a lot. Add in, movement, regular exercise, but, balance the intensity and recovery. You don't need to be running a marathon every single day if you're just starting to work out, right? It's not going to help you. You're going to start triggering more inflammation than your body can handle, and that a small amount of inflammation that could have been good for you, it's now you've taken it to a level that can now be detrimental to you. So you can always stack up later, right? You don't have to look at the person that's the absolute peak of where you want to be and go, oh, I'm just going to train like them, because they've had a long time to build up to that, and that's what you want to be able to do as well. Stress management. Things that can help you in this is meditation, breathing exercises, time in nature, walk around barefoot. These are all, free things that you can do, right? And they help you the most. I mean, there's various apps and soundtracks and retreats and all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, all of them kind of come back down to the most basic thing, which is, take some time for yourself. Take a moment to, rest and relax, and, allow your stress to start, reduce, and then think through, like, what is it that you're in control of and what's the next step that you can take. Sleep. This is something that I think we're starting to see a shift in the conversation. It used to kind of be, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Now there's, I think, more voices out there talking about the importance of sleep. So, roughly 7 to 9 hours for, most adults. And when I say most adults, I'm mainly just kind of putting that age range, because of course, if you're wondering, hey, should my, toddler be sleeping 7 hours? No, she's probably sleeping way more, but that's a whole different subject. But yeah, if you're an adult, 7 to 9 hours, and I wouldn't even say it's like 7 hours and you're good. I would try to push much more to getting those 9 hours, like 8 hours, because that's going to be much more beneficial for you than just trying to get the check mark of you did it and you did 7 hours, or you did like 6 hours and 45 minutes, right? Shoot for, a longer amount of sleep. It's probably one of the best things you can do for your health. It's so simple, but anyways, environmental detox. Making sure that as you drink water, right, just to have my bottle here, you've got clean water. Air filtration, if nothing else in your bedroom. I think that's a very simple kind of hack that most people don't do or don't think about, is just having a air purifier in your bedroom. If nothing else, just turning it on, as you go to sleep. One, it'll create some white noise, which will help you sleep better. But more importantly, it's going to be purifying the air. So for those, 8-9 hours that you're sleeping and breathing, you have the most, pure, clean oxygen, and you're not just, breathing around various dust or pollutants or, something else that could be irritating to you, and then essentially, triggering that low-grade inflammation. So I want to touch back now on the, food sensitivities and really why they matter. So these are not like an obvious allergy, right? So when most people think of an inflammatory response or an allergic response, they're thinking, okay, if I get exposed to this food, then, instantly I'm going to swell up, blow up, like it's going to be something crazy, right? Well, that isn't the case when it comes to a food sensitivity. That's going to be delayed, which means, back to the example of the eggs, if someone eats eggs in the morning at breakfast, they may not feel that symptom until lunchtime, dinner, or potentially the following day at either breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Because it takes about 72 hours from when you put food into your mouth to chewing it, having it go, digest, assimilate into your body, and of course, get put out as a waste. So in that time frame, that is when the response can happen to the food being reactive to you. So it's hard to track that on your own. And it also means that, there could be several things that are kind of working together, as far as inflammatory foods, that it would be hard to know, in isolation by itself, because it's not like the second you touched an egg, you have this reaction like a lot of people have with immediate allergies. So it can be delayed. A lot of the common, hidden triggers are going to be foods that more than likely you're regularly eating. Some of the top ones that we see, and these are foods that you can just start avoiding in your diet and just see if you start to feel a little bit better. Dairy, gluten, which is essentially wheat and various grains, and then eggs, soy, and sugar. Sugar is one that usually isn't coming up as like a reactive item in our testing, but it's one that does cause an inflammatory response. chronic exposure. So your immune system is staying on, that's leading to that silent inflammation. So what we've noticed is just in anecdotes from clients is that once they've resolved their delayed food sensitivities, sometimes their immediate allergies go away. So that's where we're kind of looking, how can we reduce that chronic exposure so that we're no longer just keeping our immune system, cranked to 11, but instead we're allowing it to, reset, lower, so that as various, things just, that we're exposed to in our life, like the various germs or bacteria or whatever that's even on this desk, is not something that's really going to take me down, because it's not like my immune system is overworking itself. And then once you understand what your sensitivities are, those foods that are causing the inflammation, you want to start removing them out of your diet. And this will often lead into rapid improvements, especially in your energy, digestion, skin, and mood. Skin's a huge one because your skin, that's your largest organ in your body. I'm sure people have, felt this before. If they've, had some bad food, or, maybe on the weekend they did like brunch and then some like, kind of crazy greasy lunch, and then, something wild at dinner. Maybe they had a couple cocktails, and then the next day they wake up and they got, pimples, a blemish, maybe their skin just, doesn't feel as good. Oftentimes it's, from those, foods that you're eating, those, low grade kind of inflammatory foods. So what's an action plan and a takeaway that you can do? So, I just want to give a quick, recap. There's good inflammation, and that's what we want to be putting more of in your, kind of daily, weekly habits: exercise, heat exposure, cold exposure. And then there's bad inflammation. Those are the things we want to stay away from. So the bacterial, viral infection type things, the various processed foods, your hidden food sensitivities, stress, lack of sleep, all of those things we want to start removing out of our diet. We want to start looking to find out what are our specific inflammatory triggers. So what is it in your life that you're having the biggest challenge with? Because, that's really kind of the 80-20 of it, right? 80-20 meaning if you were to make a change in a few things, it would give you the biggest impact, the biggest response, right? So where is 20% of that inflammation that's giving 80% of that result? Meaning, maybe it's that you aren't sleeping enough, right? You're sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night. And then you're realizing, okay, if I push that to 9, which is almost like doubling your sleep, then that can maybe have a huge impact in you feeling a lot better. And maybe that's something you can more easily do in your schedule. That's where I look for the balance is, what is it that you feel is going to give you the biggest impact? And what is the thing that you feel you can most easily implement? Because the more that you can kind of stack together, the better it's going to be for you overall. And you also want to build on those anti-inflammatory daily habits. So, if it's stress, find a time, maybe it's after lunch, maybe it's just before lunch, maybe it's, in the evening, whatever it is, just find a time where you can kind of, help reduce that stress, do a meditation, listen to, some relaxing music. Anything. Actually, one thing I did in the past is I had a thing, but it's called an adult coloring book, right? So it's not the coloring book for your kids, but it's one where you do like, I think it's called like mandalas or something. But anyways, you just kind of like color. And the point is basically focusing you into a meditation, because all you're thinking about is the coloring and not really anything else. So that could be something you could look into, whether you buy the coloring book or you even just print something off online, or if you have like a tablet or something, you could even with a pen, do some of those on just on the tablet. Anything that can just kind of help you relax your mind and kind of reset. As you're making this list, don't think of it like, oh, this is my list for my entire life, because I feel that can be overwhelming, and then you kind of can get stuck in the perfection of, am I picking the right thing? Is this going to be the thing that's like worth it? Instead, just think to yourself, all right, for the next week, I'm going to do this. Maybe for the next 2 weeks, right? Maybe for 1 week, you're going to do it. You're going to do a check-in, see how you're feeling, and then you'll continue it or continue the adjustment for the next week. This isn't something that should give you stress, right? Because that's going to be the bad inflammation. But instead, it should be something that's giving you relief. It's going to be hard to start because, like any change, it's a little difficult. So expect that. And that's what I was saying earlier. Just try to find those few things that you feel you could easily incorporate. Maybe it's a couple modifications in your diet. Maybe it's the time that you go to bed or wake up. Maybe it's, finding a time to, go for a, 10-minute walk. Anything that's more positive on the kind of anti-inflammatory side, and then reducing the inflammation that will kind of help you be able to stick to it. So, set that up. Start, taking action and moving it forward. And, please just take a moment, put down I guess make that public commitment, right? Just go into the comments and put down a commitment of like, hey, here's like the 1, 2, 3 things I'm going to incorporate for the next week or two. Put it in there, lock it into your own mind, and just start taking action. Like anything, we can sit here and gather as much information as possible. We can try to figure out the precisely perfect plan, but action always beats perfect action, right? Because just doing something and continuing to do it and then refining as you go, that will lead you to the best results instead of waiting until you potentially have the most perfect thing to do, because so much time will pass. So that's how inflammation is silently aging you. Set your plan, take action, adjust, and just stick with it. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's podcast episode. And once again, go in the comments. What's something you'd like to see next time? What's a topic that you're really curious about? Make sure to share this to a friend if you got some value out of it. Hit the subscribe button because we have more videos coming out soon.